All right, Dalton. This guy's one of the most fun players to talk about in college football. We haven't really done it too much on this channel yet, which I cannot wait to do right now. Our number 5 corner in the country is Travis Hunter, the cover athlete of EA College Football 25, and one of the best. Even though he's number 5 on this list, Dalton, he might be a top 5 player in the country for what he does both offensively and defensively for Colorado.
Absolutely. And I mean, you've talked about him as the Shohei Ohtani of college football. I think I saw Trevor Sikkema quoted lately as saying he has some of the best hands and ball skills that he's ever seen out of any player. Travis Hunter is as talented, maybe the single most talented player in college football right now. And run the numbers by it real quick. Last year, a 74.7 coverage grade in his first year in FBS football, 3 interceptions, 5 pass breakups. And honestly, most of the damage to his grades was done in a Stanford game where Alec Iomaner, who is a spectacular player in his own right, kind of tore him to shreds. If you take out that Stanford game, an 83.4 coverage grade, his coverage grade jumps almost 9 points, and he didn't miss a tackle in any other game, and actually any other game of his career through 2 years. So you got a guy who's just amazing ball skills. You see the interceptions. There's one against TCU that was just incredible. UCLA, his ball skills, his instincts for finding the football, his length, his speed, his athleticism, everything about him is just spectacular. And it makes you wonder, if he only played corner, would he be the number 1 guy? Would he be the number 1 corner in college football? He's that talented. He's got everything you could ask for. He's an absolute freak.
Yeah, and that's saying a lot, man, considering the guys that we have at the top of this list. And I agree with you. Honestly, I think that's the one thing holding him back is that he plays both sides of the ball, and he's just too tired probably to dominate as much as the other guys do. And he still plays really well. I mean, he was Colorado's number 1 corner last year, had 721 receiving yards as well, played 1,044 snaps. He only played in 9 games, Dalton. So other guys who played in 15 games, like I say for Michigan, he still had the most snaps in the country at 1,044 in 9 games, which is absolutely preposterous. That's over 100 per game that he was playing for Colorado last year, which is nuts. And he also really matched up with the best receiver all the time, it felt like, for Colorado last year. 3 interceptions like we saw before, second in the Pac-12. Best ball skills in the country, freak athlete, 97th percentile in terms of gas score. I just think, man, this guy is so special on both sides of the ball, Dawn, honestly. So what are the weaknesses that you think with Travis Hunter as a cornerback right now?
So I think there's the big narrative is obviously, so would he be the best corner if he didn't play wide receiver? The problem is you could easily argue he's the best wide receiver also. And it's just the exertion. And last year, Colorado played a ton of man coverage, right? And that's takes the most exertion and the most like physical energy to do, is to play press man and one-on-one. And you saw it in the Stanford game against an Iomaner. Like, Iomaner's a great receiver, a top 10 receiver for us. And he's shadowing him the whole game, and he's trying to play receiver. Now, some of that might be, that was his first game coming off the cheap shot he took against Colorado State. So, maybe that played a part in it. First game back, and then the rest of the season he was rolling. But the only other thing I have with him is he is a little bit thin. He's a good tackler, but I think he could put on a few pounds and be a little more physical in coverage if he is going to play that much press coverage. He is kind of thin for as athletic as he is, but that would be the main question, would be the workload, right? If this guy just played 800 snaps at just corner, is he the best corner in the country? The talent and the ball skills and the highlights for sure tell you absolutely he very well could. And it's, look, if he's got to help his team, look, Colorado's not a team with a lot of depth, except for a couple of spots, but he's a part of both of the two best areas on their team. It feels like he has to play both ways for them to succeed if they're going to compete in the Big 12 and do all that. But what is the limit? And when we get to the NFL draft, what's the decision here? Is a team going to play him both ways? Is a team going to play him just at corner? How's this going to work, and how's he going to be able to hold up?
I agree with that, man. And I think, we talked about Caleb Downs earlier as a guy who's going to play a little bit of running back and safety for Ohio State. Ohio State doesn't need him to do that. They don't need him to play running back. But I think the important distinction with Colorado in that situation is that they need him to play receiver. They need him to play cornerback for them. So it is a necessity that Deion Sanders is doing this. Is not just to pump his numbers up on both sides of the ball. And he's just such a special player that he's able to do it, man. But it does, obviously, any human being you're not supposed to be playing both sides of the ball in college football. You do it in high school, sure, but in college football in the NFL, that's not you don't really see players do that often, and to the extent that he does really. And the guys who do are truly like special talents that we've seen in the past too. So I think it does hurt him a little bit, and it hurts his efficiency because he's exhausted out there. And he's coming off the injury as well. You took, like I said, that big cheap shot in the Colorado State game, but. Yeah, I think that's the question with him, is that will he ever be allowed, at least in college, will he ever be allowed to really become a true superstar at one position, or will he just be a really good player at both just because of how exhausted he could be out there, which is it's a good problem to have for Colorado, man, but it does kind of limit him, and that's why he's number 5 on this list. But again, I'd argue he's a top 5 player in the country only because it's hard to be an elite player at one position when you're playing two sides of the ball. So I wanted to ask you, Dalton, I know he's number 5 on our list for corners. Is he the best player, though, in college football, period, right now, do you think?
There's a good argument, right? If we see him healthy for a full season, and if he can do both of those things, let's just say he has a year with an 80-plus coverage grade and 1,000 receiving yards and something crazy, you're going to be talking about Travis Hunter as a Heisman candidate. Yeah. One thing I'm curious about, too, when we talk about workload and things like that, this year, I believe, right, they're putting the helmets in the quarterback headsets right now. They're in the helmets microphones in the helmets, I should say. And I wonder if less teams, because you're not going to have the cue cards and all that, are going to like those super up-tempo, no-huddle offenses, because a lot of that is about getting play calls out. As it relates to Hunter, again, endurance matters more for him than anybody else in the country. If that helps, maybe if the game starts slowing down just a little bit, if that keeps him on the field a little bit longer. But no, if he has that type of season that you're talking about, and let's say he wins a Heisman Trophy as a two-way player, he could go number 1 in next year's draft as a whatever they want to call him. If Roger Goodell's going to call him cornerback / receiver or whatever, we're going to be having to prepare for that next year's draft. What's Goodell going to call him? Is he both? Is he this? But Travis Hunter is the one guy who you could call he's a defensive player. He is. That you go, okay, he could win the Heisman, right? And Charles Woodson, back when he won the Heisman, he did different things too. The return game, especially, he played some receiver. These are the types of names you're talking about. So the potential is all there. By the end of the year, he could just be the best player in college football.
So I agree with you. I think he definitely could be. And I think you can make an argument he already is, because I don't think there is a true like Caleb Williams type of quarterback we have to put the number 1 as the best player in the country. Like, I think there is a wide open race for it. And I think guys like Ollie Gordon, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, we'll talk about in a future video, are up there. But I think Travis Hunter has as good an argument as any to be the best player in college football. Last question, Dalton, before we finish up here. Where should he play? Because I've seen one quote from a scout that said he's a Pro Bowl talent receiver and he's an all-pro talent corner. I think he'd be a first-round pick at either of them, honestly. Where do you think is ultimate long-term home? Because he's not going to play both in the NFL, right? I don't think there's going to be, at least not to this extent. What position do you think is better for him long-term in the NFL, as a corner or as a wide receiver?
I think corner, the question for him personally is going to be, if he's a lead at receiver, he's going to make more money, right? Yeah. You're talking about receivers getting in the $30, $35 million range, where the corners are still hanging in the low 20s, right? If it's a money argument, he should play receiver. If it's a talent argument and, like, say, a positional scarcity argument, like, to me, there's more, and why he wasn't in our top 10 receivers list, there are more great receivers in college and in the NFL than there are great corners. Like, there's no question as a corner in the NFL, and especially if he's got all-pro potential like that, that he will be an insanely coveted asset, right? Like, I'm with that. I don't see him as a transcendent receiver. Now, if he comes out this year and he has 1,500 yards, we might think a little bit differently. I could see him being a transcendent corner, a top 3 to 4, 3, 4, 5 corner in the NFL, in with the Sauce Gardners and the Richard, not Richard Sherman anymore, but guys of that ilk who just are lights out, or the ball skills, or lead the league in interceptions. Like, if you ask me if it's more likely that Travis Hunter is something more like Sauce Gardner or he's something more like Justin Jefferson, then I would say he's going to play defense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's a better cornerback than he is a receiver. I still think he's a really, really good receiver and could play receiver long term. And I think it's a great point that you made, that the money is probably going to be a big argument for that, right? Because the top receivers are making $30+ million a year. Top corners are making like $20 million a year. So that is a big argument for him right now. But it's going to be interesting. I do think he's going to play a little bit of both in the NFL. I think a team would be smart for him to do that, but I don't think to this extent, right? I don't think he's going to be playing, literally starting on both sides of the ball and being the top corner and the top receiver. He's not not going to do that in the NFL. But he is a special player and arguably the best player in college football. That is Travis Hunter from Colorado.